Hello, everyone. We are the Arts Equity Nashville team members here with you today. We are going to be doing a run through the timeline of what's been going on in terms of Thrive and Metro Arts since August, well, before that, but since the recall vote in August 2023. So thank you all for your time, for being here, and I'll introduce the team members here who will be presenting the teach-in. My name is Lydia Youssef. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the director currently of In Mahabba Center. And In Mahabba was slated to receive Thrive funding for the first time for the fiscal year of 2024, and we were defunded, one of the orgs that was defunded. I'll pass to Elena.
Hey there, my name is Elena. I have she, her pronouns, and I am on the steering committee for Surge, showing up for racial justice in Nashville. I'm also a musician and community organizer and was also impacted by the budget cuts of the Thrive grant.
Hi, I am Christine Hall. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a local artist, not a Thrive applicant, though I've worked with others on their Thrive projects. I helped organize the Arts Equity Mayoral Forum and participated in public grants editing panel.
Hi, my name is Sangeeta Ekambram. I use she, her pronouns. And I am the founder of the Visionary Vocal Collaborative. We applied for Thrive the past couple of cycles. I've also been involved in other Thrive projects in the community and was also part of the grants editing panel this summer of 2023.
All right, we'll get started. So in this presentation, we are going to cover an analysis of the internal dynamics going on at Metro Arts internally and also externally with new leadership. We are going to cover a timeline of key events since fall of 2022. And then we'll talk about the MHRC complaint, which we have filed, and then we'll end with and round out talking about mobilizing towards our current and future goals for arts equity in Nashville.
So we want to give a little history about who Metro Arts is and what they do. Metro Arts is a government department responsible for overseeing public artworks and is a grant-making body. In the fiscal year of 2024, Metro Arts budget is about $5 million in tax funds, which is approximately 0.17 of Metro Nashville's entire budget to cover staff, grants, the Thrive grant, and things of that nature. Metro Arts is the only local government entity that makes grants via public grant selection panels. So they have committee members come on board to help review the grants to disperse the funds. So since 1972, Metro Arts has awarded general operating grants to deemed arts organizations, and they chose to define arts organizations as 501c3 that only manage art, such as the Frist or the Nashville Symphony. The grant amounts range from a few $1,000s to six figures. In 2014, after public outcry against the inequitable funding model, Metro Arts added the Thrive grant from their procurement funds, not from their general operating funding source. So the Thrive grant first started out as $4,000 a year, plus collaboration with an arts organization, plus an extensive application. In December of 2022, under the leadership of the new director of Metro Arts, Daniel Singh, the Metro Arts Commission voted to open up Thrive to $20,000 a year. The Metro Arts Commission is the volunteer, unpaid, appointed by the mayor board that oversees the big picture decisions of the Department of Metro Arts. They meet almost monthly to vote on grant allocations. Right now, the Metro Arts Commission is predominantly white, and artists are discouraged from being a part of the commission because there's a stipulation that artists cannot receive Metro Arts funding while being on the commission. Therefore, many artists do not apply, and so their voices are not reflected in the ultimate commission decisions, basically giving the final say of where money should go. So in summary, Metro Arts funding model has historically reinforced the dominance of the art monopolies, excluding the majority of actual artists in Nashville. They achieved this by narrowly defining the scope of eligibility for funding and filling prominent decision-making positions with people whose loyalties reside with the art monopolies or have little knowledge of the lived realities of artists in the city. So we want to talk about how we got here, and we want to talk about the history of Metro Arts. Metro Arts had an all-white full-time staff until 2014. To understand the accountability that we are asking for today as the Arts Equity Coalition, we must acknowledge the women of color who have come before us about the racism and inequities that were happening within Metro Arts that they have experienced. In 2019, Cecilia Alusa Tribble was forced to resign. In 2020, Lauren Fitzgerald was also forced to resign. In August 2021, Cecilia and Lauren submit formal complaints about a toxic work environment. In September of 2021, the Nashville Scene launches an investigation and reports on allegations. Surge contacts Metro Arts staff and commission in response to these investigations to support the staff. In January of 2022, Janine Cristiano files a formal complaint with HR, and Caroline Vincent takes a leave of absence, who was in leadership. So since 2018, 3 out of 4 of the staff members put on performance improvement plans were women of color. And these are the women that we are discussing. Since they have come forward, they have shined a light on the racism and inequities that have happened behind closed doors at Metro Arts, and have started the call for equity within the arts community. In spring 2022, Janine Cristiano was fired, and Caroline Vincent resigned as Metro Arts executive director. Ian Myers, who had floated around from department to department, was deemed the interim executive director. And then in June 2022, Surge petitioned and campaigned to urge the removal of Jim Schmidt and Ian Myers. We also want to note as well that Caroline Vincent and Ian Myers and Jim Schmidt faced no reprimand for the allegations and the complaints that were filed against them from the women of color who came forward with their experiences.
So given all this, in August 2022, Metro Arts decides to move into a new direction. And the Committee for Anti-Racism and Equity that was established in 2017, which was put in place because they needed to address the internal issues of racism. And they wanted to support Metro Arts in their equity mission, both within Metro Arts and also the arts ecosystem in Nashville in general. And this is a committee that is comprised of community members. And so they put out a new search. They put out a search for a new director. And in August 2022, they hired Daniel Singh, who had clear goals about how to move Metro Arts in this direction of equity. His 2 major missions was to first secure more funding overall. And at that time, his basic thought was that Metro Arts had never actually asked for more money. So they contacted the mayor's office to find out how they could accomplish this. And the mayor's office gave them some pointers on how to submit data, and then they would see how they can follow through on this promise of more funding. He also wanted to, of course, distribute that funding more equitably. At the time, he had a very optimistic vision that he could increase the funding for all of the arts organizations in Nashville while trying to work towards this vision of more equity for organizations that had been historically overlooked. And in order to aid in this process of more equitable funding distribution, this is the first time that Metro Arts involves the public. They did this through listening sessions, coffee hours with Daniel, and also implementing grants editing panels where the community was invited in. Were paid to actually come meet, talk about the funding process, and try to come up with more equitable solutions as a community. And so when Daniel entered this position, he inherited this trend in the way the grants were distributed. General operating grants was historically given to a majority of a handful of these large white-led organizations, and the Thrive Award, which was put in place in 2014 to bridge this gap of inequity, was still a very inequitable funding model because there was no statement about race, and only a few dozen applications received were from the majority of those were from white artists. And there was also a lack of community outreach to even make the Thrive Award something that people knew about.
So following up on this new push for community outreach and the need to refine the grants to make that process more equitable, more accessible, in November 2022, Metro Arts hosted public grants editing panels, one of which I participated on with Lydia. We introduced the concept for a micro category that would qualify for a higher percentage of funding, since that translates to such a low amount of dollars in the overall scheme anyway. And so many of the smaller artists and organizations have already demonstrated what good investments they are and what lasting benefit they offer to the community. Following up on the November 2022 grants editing panel, there was a December 2022 Metro Arts Commission meeting where some of the participants in the editing panels came to attest to the process, to the importance of involving the public and the importance of the recommendations we were making to advocate for the commission to adopt those going forward with the grants in order to ensure the equity and accessibility. The entire commission, except for two who were in abstinence of the vote, approved that, with the exception of Commissioner Will Cheek, who asked if they were to adopt the public recommendations, if they could still make changes after the fact, to which Executive Director Daniel Singh replied that that was antithetical to the point of involving the public and accepting public recommendations if they're just going to undo that after the fact. In February 2023, a lot of the artists who had become involved through this community outreach process, we were aware that there was a greater need for arts funding. So we went before Metro Council to advocate for 1% to go to the arts in Nashville.
And in the spring of 2023, this is when Metro Arts really starts to work on the ground towards more equitable funding. In February 2023, they opened up the Thrive application on the website. Metro Arts staff starts to do a tremendous amount of outreach in the community to make Thrive known to the wider community. They also hired an outside agency to conduct a disparity study to argue why this outreach is important. And this also affected the general operating grant application because another tactic was to make these applications more accessible and streamlined. Thrive alone saw an increase by 600% in the number of applicants, and Metro Arts staff went out of their way to really help community members come in and fill out the applications. That is when reason why there is such a large increase. And also the application itself was made to be much simpler than the previous years. As someone who applied both years, there was a drastic difference in the requirements, and the focus was really about funding projects in the community.
So in May 2023, we have some record of conversations that exist between this Commissioner Will Cheek and Executive Director Daniel Singh, wherein Will Cheek is asking to hold up a disparity study that was done that in fact showed there was so much disparity it could not even be measured. It was off the scale. And also there were conversations around this time regarding the case that was before the Supreme Court considering affirmative action in higher education and how this may impact some of the equitable policies Metro Arts was looking to instate. And Will Cheek said that there were known workarounds. And so clearly these discussions were happening. This was happening with the knowledge of commissioners, with conversations all throughout the process. In early June 2023, we as artists moved to press the incoming mayor for increased funding to the arts, since the old mayor did not come through, even though Metro Arts and all of the arts community in Nashville had demonstrated on request the need for that increased funding. In June of 2023, for that Arts Equity Mayoral Forum that we in the arts community organized in order to advocate for the incoming mayor to commit to dedicating 1% of the budget to the arts. We were all there when Mayor Freddie O'Connell, he's our mayor now, he was a council member at the time. He made that announcement on June 14th at the forum that it was due to our advocacy that $2 million in additional funds was committed by the Metro Council to Metro Arts. And expressly, that was to fully fund the Thrive program. We have records of this in talks by council members. And we also know that this was a response to our advocacy in the form of a letter writing campaign that generated over 12,000 emails to council members advocating for that extra funds, which is really not extra because we could use even more, but to go to fully fund the Thrive program that focused on individual artists and projects.
So after all of the work to secure the data, after all the work of the community to advocate, send letters, meet up at this forum, communicate with elected officials, after the commission votes in what the public came up with in November of 2022, and the commission approves it in December of 2022. And then the council, Metro Council, in June of 2023, as Christine said, secures $2 million to fully fund Thrive. It seems like everything is in place in terms of the labor that has gone in for months and years on the community's behalf to make sure equity, we're going in the right direction towards equity. For the first time, people are receiving, you know, not $2,000 grants or $5,000 grants, while the Frist and Symphony are getting 6 figures. We're talking about something that has actual meaning to create art projects and to detach artists from being dependent on large institutions, to make artists independent. For the first time in Metro Arts history, we've come into this moment. Like, artists have put in so much work. And in July 20, for the commission meeting, all they have to do, the commission, is to approve the delineated funds from Metro Council, the democratically elected body. All commissioners present approve, minus Will Cheek, Campbell West, and Janet Kurtz. Metro Legal is there, attends the vote, secures and finalizes the vote and the discussion, and approves the minutes. What happens after this is that Commissioner Will Cheek goes to Metro Legal to recall this vote. His reasoning, quote unquote, is affirmative action has been overturned. And Metro Legal's other lawyers get involved and send a memo. And Metro Legal's role within Metro government is simply to advise Metro departments. They are not allowed to direct. They are not allowed to push forward anything. They are simply there to advise, and whatever happens to those departments, Metro Legal is responsible for taking cases. So anyways, Metro Legal recalls the vote, sends out a memo on July 24th, calling for the recall. There is no public recording of this meeting. Between that commission meeting and then the next one, the recall vote in August, the Nashville Arts Coalition, which is an all-white lobbying wing to the large art monopolies, which had already been in discussion about whether or not it is legal to award grants to local artists. They're already in those discussions. They come to Daniel Singh, the director, and ask for a private meeting. Daniel Singh says that the meeting will be public. I'm one of the folks who attended. And in essence, during this meeting, there's a lot of conversation about budget size does not matter. And that the members of the Nashville Arts Coalition threaten Director Daniel Singh that if the lion's share does not come to them, that they will not advocate for more funding. So the meeting kind of ends on a sour note. There's no real agenda. There's just, if we don't get this money, there will be consequences for you, is kind of the vibe. August 17th comes around. Councilmember Delisha Porterfield comes again to this meeting and tells the commission this analogy of if the council gives MNPS $2 million or for books, and MNPS does not allot that for books and instead uses it on whatever stipends, that does not encourage Metro Council to delineate those funds again to MNPS. In essence, telling the commission that if they want a good relationship with Metro Council and they want to increase funding for all artists, that they need to listen to the Democratic body. After 2 hours of public comments, in particular, what's noteworthy, the 2 hours of public comments are not on the record, not on public record. But it's really important to note that there was a very clear split between white men who showed up and made several comments about, well, we employ people of color, but also you shouldn't base anything on race. And what will happen if my multi-million-dollar organization does not receive $10,000 and an artist in Nashville receives $10,000? Yeah. And there's a very clear split between that argument, multiple arguments that were made of what art is and who needs to be prioritized in the art community versus local artists who were calling out with their heart of how important this funding is. Commissioner Chair Mattia Powell, who has since resigned, during this meeting calls for the vote and tells the commissioners to now host those discussions. Commissioner Leah Dupree Love specifically calls out Metro Legal, that was present also for this vote, to name on the record why the recall was happening. And Metro Legal on the record, this portion of the commission meeting is recorded and online. They do say because of the overturning of affirmative action, this is why we're doing the recall. After Commission Chair Mattia Powell calls for the vote, Marianne Bird and Jim Schmidt, who is still on the commission, both pull out scripts and say they begin that they're confused. They didn't know what was going on this whole time on the commission, and they're very confused about what's going on. So they want to defund local artists. And they choose scenario 4. Out of 4 scenarios, scenario 1 being to fully fund Thrive and keep the July commission vote, which was very possible to do. And scenario 2 and 3, which would be a decrease in funding Thrive recipients. And then scenario 4 would be 50% of the funds. So of what Thrive recipients were asking for. So they vote to fully defund, not fully, but like at 50% defund Thrive recipients instead of going through the middle or fully funding them as they had stated in July. At this point, we start organizing. I contact Christine at Arts Equity Nashville, and we start to gather artists to file this complaint and to make sure commissioners know that they cannot vote on something against equity without, and obviously throughout this whole thing, throughout Metro Arts history, the artist community has been very, very vocal about what they need in order to thrive here in Nashville. And so the MHRC complaint is part of that long history of community members advocating for themselves. So we file the complaint at the end of September, and Metro Human Relations picks it up and begins the investigation. You can read the whole timeline and also the complaint itself on artsequitynashville.org. So as our complaint goes through, there are multiple commission meetings, and it becomes very clear that there are a lot of players involved within Metro to fight against equity. So during the November 16th commission meeting, where the Metro Human Relations staff attend to give the update to the commission, there were a few updates. Laura Fox from Metro Legal attends this meeting and explains that the reason small organizations who were receiving general operating grants, and they saw an increase during Daniel's leadership, the reason they're not getting their funding is because of a paperwork holdup. So simply, the Department of Finance does not want to sign on those checks. And Commissioner Jim Schmidt asks if Metro Legal can represent commissioners after hearing this update. And the most important update from the November commission meeting was that after Commission Chair Mattia Powell leaves, Ellen Angelico took over for 3 months and then resigns after this meeting. And Metro Legal becomes heavily involved, tells Director Daniel Singh not to speak to media, but there's a lot of media from right-wing newspapers about what's going on, and commissioners are speaking and staff are involved with both of these newspapers. So there's like a deliberate clamping down of equity and speaking about equity through other Metro Arts or Metro government departments. Because of this, in December 14th, Councilmember Joy Stiles, who's the head of the Arts Committee of Metro Council, calls for a special session to have everything kind of in the open because of what's been going on in the media. Although impacted parties were not heard during this special session, Commissioner Will Cheek was present and on the record admits to being the one to going to Metro Legal. And he also admits to doing pro bono work for Nashville nonprofits, Nashville art nonprofits. So through this time, the complaint is going through investigation. As of right now, we are waiting for the report to come out. And the last kind of update was that the Metro Human Relations Commission has secured Melody Green, who is the former executive director of the Metro Human Relations Department, to oversee the investigation of the complaint before it becomes public, because Metro Legal is not equipped to handle Title VI complaints.
So our current goal is clear. We are working to fully fund Thrive for the 2024 applicants to honor that July vote by the Arts Commission and in honor of the Metro Council's budget. And we're doing this knowing that and confirming that something that's been confirmed is that this was a coordinated attack against equity.
So right now, as an extension of the work we've been doing, carrying over really years of community work on this front, but also specifically the letter writing campaign and the public comments campaign from last fiscal cycle, we are bringing that back. 1% of the combined Metro budget needs to go to Metro Arts, and we are further clarifying that needs to have a 50-50 split between large institutions and independent artists and small organizations. We have made some appearances in the media of late. Many of them, two we've highlighted here, is coverage in Nashville Scene and the Tennessean. These clippings and links are available on our website in the news section. We also have a section dedicated to the Metro Human Relations complaint where we have a full page of references available as well. You can go and look at some of the things we've been discussing and yes, see some of the media coverage as well. See even some tweets that people have sent out about the subject. It's been causing quite a stir in the Nashville arts scene. You can connect with us on that website, www.artsequitynashville.org. We're on Instagram at Arts Equity Nashville. Our email is artsequitynashville@gmail.com. There's a membership page. We have points of unity that you can sign on to. You can join our mailing list. We'd love to connect with you. And yes, we are very much interested in the artists and the smaller organizations banding together so we can leverage our voices all together and really connect with those in government and places of power to get our message for equity across.
Thank you all.